The Rakari Military Academy stood like a mountain of black stone against the purple sky of Theron Prime. For 300 years, this fortress had trained the finest warriors in the Galactic Coalition. Every species sent their young ones here. The Kethrani with their 6 arms and razor claws, the Zorvani with their poisonous fangs and night vision, the Draxan with their armored scales that could stop plasma fire. These were the predator races of the galaxy. They were born to hunt, to kill, to survive. And then there was Marcus Cole. He was the first human to ever walk through those ancient gates. At 17 years old, he stood among creatures twice his size, with natural weapons built into their bodies. He had no claws, no fangs, no armor. His skin was soft and easily damaged. His eyes could not see in the dark. His ears could not hear beyond a small range. By every measure that the Academy used to judge potential warriors, he should not have been there. The Coalition Council had debated for 6 months before allowing his entry. Humanity had only been part of the galactic community for 20 years. They were still considered a young species, untested and unproven. Many council members argued that sending a human to the Academy was a waste of resources. Others called it dangerous for the human himself. But the human ambassador had insisted, and eventually the council agreed to a trial period of 1 year. Marcus remembered his first day clearly. The other cadets had circled around him like predators, examining strange prey. A young Kethrani named Vex had poked his chest with one of her 6 clawed fingers. She expected him to flinch or cry out. He did neither. He simply looked up at her with calm brown eyes and said nothing. This confused her greatly. She had never met a creature that did not react to perceived threat with either aggression or fear. The instructors were even less welcoming than the cadets. Chief Instructor Korath was a massive Draxan with scales the color of dried blood. He had fought in 12 campaigns across the galaxy. His body was covered with scars that he wore like medals. On Marcus's first training day, Korath had made him stand in front of the entire assembly of 300 cadets. "This is a human," Korath announced, his deep voice echoing off the stone walls. "They are weak. They are slow. They have no natural weapons. They should not be here." He paused and looked directly at Marcus. "But the council has ordered us to test them. So we will test them. We will see what breaks them. We will see what makes them run." Marcus did not run. For 6 months, he endured training designed to break warriors far stronger than himself. He ran obstacle courses built for creatures with multiple limbs. He fought in combat simulations against opponents who could tear through steel with their bare hands. He survived wilderness exercises in environments that should have killed him within hours. Every time the instructors expected him to fail, he found a way to continue. Every time they thought he would quit, he showed up the next morning ready for more. But survival was not the same as acceptance. The other cadets kept their distance from him. They trained beside him, but never with him. They ate in the same hall, but never at his table. To them, he was an oddity, a curiosity, perhaps even an embarrassment to the Academy's reputation. How could a creature so obviously inferior be worthy of standing among apex predators? Only one group showed him any kindness. They called themselves the Cubs, though they were anything but small. Vex the Kethrani was there, the same one who had poked him on his first day. Over time, her curiosity had turned into something like respect. Tharn was a young Zorvani whose fangs had not yet fully developed, making him the runt of his species' cadets. Grax was a Draxan whose scales had grown in a mottled pattern that others found ugly, marking him as different from birth. And there was Sela, a female Kethrani whose left arm had been damaged at birth, leaving her with only 5 functional limbs. These 4 had found each other through their shared experience of being outsiders. When Marcus arrived, they recognized something familiar in his isolation. Slowly, carefully, They began to include him in their circle. At first, it was small gestures, saving him a seat in the dining hall, warning him about particularly brutal training exercises, sharing food from their home worlds. Marcus, in turn, shared what he had. He told them stories from Earth about a planet covered in water where humans had somehow risen to dominance despite their many physical weaknesses. He explained human concepts that confused them. Things like mercy, compassion, and sacrifice for strangers. These ideas were not unknown to predator species, but they expressed them differently. For humans, these values seemed central to their identity in ways that the cubs found strange and fascinating. One night, Tharn asked Marcus a question that had been bothering him for months. "Why do you stay? You must know that the instructors want you to fail. They design exercises specifically to break you. Any sensible creature would have left by now." Marcus thought about this for a long moment. On Earth, we have a saying, "What doesn't kill you makes you stronger." I'm not here to prove that humans are as strong as you or as fast as you or as deadly as you. I know we're not. I'm here to prove that strength comes in different forms, that there's more than one way to be a warrior. The cubs did not fully understand this answer, but they remembered it. The test came on a night when the 3 moons of Theron Prime aligned in a configuration that happened only once every 50 years. The instructors had announced a special exercise to mark this occasion. All 300 cadets were transported to the Burning Lands, a volcanic region on the far side of the planet. Here, the ground itself was unstable. Rivers of molten rock flowed between islands of cooling stone. The air was thick with ash and toxic gases. The objective was simple. Each cadet was given a beacon. They had to reach the extraction point 20 kilometers away before sunrise. Any cadet who activated their beacon would be rescued, but would fail the exercise. Any cadet who did not reach the extraction point would also fail. The instructors made clear that failure meant expulsion from the academy. What they did not announce was the true nature of the test. This exercise had been designed specifically to eliminate Marcus Cole. The instructors had placed his starting position on a small island, surrounded on 3 sides by active lava flows. The only path forward required crossing a narrow bridge of cooling rock that would collapse within hours. They had calculated everything precisely. A Kethrani could cross in time. A Draxan could survive a fall into cooler lava. A Zorvani could find alternative routes using their superior night vision. But a human, with his slow speed and fragile body, would be trapped. Marcus realized the trap within minutes of the exercise beginning. He could see the bridge already beginning to crack and shift. He could feel the heat rising through his boots. He could smell the sulfur in the air, thick enough to make his lungs burn with every breath. The instructors had given him a breathing mask rated for 6 hours. He calculated that he would need at least 8 hours to reach the extraction point at his maximum sustainable pace. They had thought of everything. What they had not thought of was the cubs. Vex had noticed that Marcus's starting position was separated from the main group. This struck her as suspicious. When she reached higher ground and looked back, she saw the island surrounded by fresh lava flows. She saw the bridge beginning to fail. She saw Marcus standing at the edge, calculating his options with that strange calm that humans seem to possess in the face of danger. She did not hesitate. She turned away from the extraction point and began running back toward his position. Tharn saw her change direction and immediately understood. He followed without asking questions. Grax was next, his heavy footsteps shaking the ground as he charged after them. Sela brought up the rear, her 5 arms working to balance her body as she navigated the unstable terrain. They reached the edge of the lava flow just as the bridge collapsed completely. Marcus was now truly trapped on his island. The heat was becoming unbearable. His breathing mask was filtering out the worst of the toxic gases, but it could do nothing about the temperature. He could feel his skin beginning to burn even through his protective suit. The cubs looked at each other. They did not need to discuss what to do. They had all grown up hearing the same lessons about survival of the fittest, about never risking your own life for a weaker creature, about the cold logic of predator calculus. And in that moment, looking at their human friend trapped and burning, they rejected all of it. Grax went first. His Draxan scales could withstand temperatures that would kill the others instantly. He waded into the edge of the lava flow, searching for stones and debris that could be used to build a path. The heat was agonizing even for him, but he did not stop. He found a fallen pillar of volcanic rock and pushed it toward the island, creating the first segment of a bridge. Vex used her 6 arms to gather smaller stones and pack them around the pillar, stabilizing it. The heat burned her claws, but she kept working. Tharn found a pool of cooling lava that had begun to harden and used his body weight to break off chunks that could be added to the bridge. Sela coordinated their efforts, calling out structural weaknesses that needed reinforcement. Marcus watched them work with an emotion he could not name. These were predators, creatures born and raised to prioritize their own survival above all else. The Academy had spent years training them to be even more ruthless, even more self-interested. And yet here they were, risking their lives and their futures at the Academy to save a human they had known for only 6 months. The bridge was complete in 20 minutes. It was ugly and unstable, but it held. Grax extended one massive clawed hand toward Marcus. "Move quickly, human. This will not last long." Marcus ran. The stones shifted beneath his feet. He felt heat rising through his boots, hot enough to blister his soles. But he did not stop. He reached the other side just as the makeshift bridge began to collapse behind him. Grax grabbed him and threw him over one shoulder, and then all 5 of them were running, fleeing the island as it sank into the lava behind them. They ran through the night. They helped each other over obstacles and through toxic gas clouds. When Marcus's breathing mask failed 2 hours before sunrise, Tharn shared his own, passing it back and forth despite the risk of contamination. When Sela's damaged arm gave out from exhaustion, Grax carried her on his back. When Vex's claws cracked from the heat damage, Marcus wrapped them with strips from his own suit. They reached the extraction point together just as the first light of the alien sun touched the horizon. The instructors were waiting there with expressions of shock and anger. They had expected to find Marcus dead or forced to activate his beacon in disgrace. Instead, they found 5 cadets who had completed the exercise together, supporting each other, refusing to leave anyone behind. Chief Instructor Korath approached them slowly. His eyes moved from one cadet to the next, taking in their injuries, their exhaustion, their defiance. Finally, his gaze settled on Marcus. "You should be dead, human," Korath said. Marcus straightened his burned and battered body. "Yes, sir, but I had help. Help that may have cost your friends their places at this academy. They abandoned the primary mission to rescue you. They risked failure for a creature that many would consider expendable." Vex stepped forward, her 6 arms crossed defiantly. "With respect, Chief Instructor, the mission was survival. We survived. All of us. The mission was individual survival, each cadet for themselves. Then the mission was wrong. This came from Tharn, the smallest and quietest of them." His voice was steady despite his exhaustion. "We are being trained to be warriors. But what kind of warriors abandon their own? What kind of army leaves its soldiers to die when rescue is possible?" Korath's eyes narrowed. For a long moment, no one spoke. The other surviving cadets watched in silence, uncertain what would happen next. Many of them had seen the cubs running back toward the lava flows. Many of them had wondered why. Now they had their answer. "The Kethrani have a saying," Korath finally spoke. His voice was different now, softer somehow. "The strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. We have spent so many generations training individual predators that perhaps we have forgotten what makes a true hunting pack." He looked at Marcus again. Humans are weak, slow, fragile. But they understand something that we have been trying to breed out of our warriors for centuries. They understand that survival means nothing if you leave your people behind. He turned to address all the assembled cadets. Let this be a lesson. These 5 cadets showed more warrior spirit tonight than many veterans I have known. They chose loyalty over self-preservation. They chose the pack over the individual. They chose to be warriors rather than mere survivors. He paused. They passed the exercise. All of them. Marcus looked at his friends. Vex with her burned claws. Tharn with his cracked breathing mask. Grax with his scorched scales. Selah with her arm hanging limply at her side. They had given everything to save him, a human, a creature that their entire culture said was beneath their concern. He did not have words adequate to express his gratitude, so he simply said, "Thank you." Vex punched his shoulder with one of her damaged claws. It was a gesture of affection among Kathrani. "You would have done the same for us." Marcus nodded. He would have. That was what the instructors had never understood about humans. They were weak, yes. Slow, yes. Fragile, yes. But when it came to protecting their own, they were utterly relentless. The Cubs had learned this lesson through 6 months of friendship. Tonight they had proven that they had learned it well. And as they walked together toward the Academy Medical Center, 5 predators and 1 human, Marcus realized that perhaps this had been the real test all along. Not of his survival skills, but of something far more important. The instructors had tested loyalty with fire. The predator cubs had pulled the human out before the smoke, and in doing so they had proven that the future of warfare in the galaxy would not be decided by claws or fangs or scales. It would be decided by those who understood that true strength came from standing together, from refusing to abandon each other, from being pack rather than predator. Marcus Cole smiled despite his burns. Humanity had sent him to prove that they belonged among the stars. Tonight, he had done something better. He had found a family among the predators, and they had chosen him right back.